Welcome to Season 3 of the Real Personal Branding Podcast. This podcast was always about interviewing entrepreneurs about the secrets behind building their successful personal brand businesses, and we will continue to do that and fill it with tactical knowledge too, but I wanted to reintroduce myself and some brand new concepts to the show. My name is Lauren V. Davis, and I am the co-founder of a well-loved Midwest record store and the founder of Lauren Davis Creative, which is a marketing and branding consultancy based in the Midwest that works with clients all over the world, and we help them build memorable and impactful personal brands through their content and from the stage. Now, my life has changed quite a bit since the last season. I've paused this podcast. I went through a pretty painful divorce at the end of 2021, and because of the divorce, I left the record store business with my ex, with whom I helped cherish and grow that store for over 16 years. In many ways, I felt like I kind of lost part of my identity when I stepped away from that. I had grown that business for pretty much my entire adult life. But then I found myself leaving opened up my bandwidth to work on myself, and that's what I did. I really had no choice because I kind of had a big open wound too inside me. My personal brand business kept floating and eventually thriving. I worked really hard at healing myself as a person, a friend, a business owner, a leader in my communities. And in many ways, I found myself in a much more real way than I ever had before. I found new and beautiful love like I had never experienced, and I found a deeper and comfier place in my community. This is not a sob story. I'm telling you this because something happened to me over the last couple of years. A couple of things happened, actually. First, I realized firsthand just how important my character and my personal brand were. Having to step away from one business that I held on to so tightly in this local setting, I was worried that people would either forget who I was, or they would stop caring about me, or that I would be of less value to them without that business. Thinking about that seems silly now, but it was a very real worry of mine. It could not be farther from what happened. I found that many people were excited and happy for me because they had the ability to see things that I couldn't see at the time. They were cheering for me. They saw this open landscape of freedom ahead of me. And just after some of this happened, I was actually talking with a friend. Well, it was an acquaintance who knew me for a long time, but we were starting to become better friends. And she said something to me that really helped me when I was so worried about this. She said, "Lauren, we have all known your character for so long. You're consistent and real, and you have always been the same for as long as everyone has ever known you." She basically went on to say that people aren't going to think differently of me because they actually know the genuine version of me. And a light bulb came on. I have always consistently been me. If I hadn't kept building my real self into my personal branding business all of these years alongside the record store, and if I hadn't nourished my personal brand, I wouldn't be here the way that I am today. Relaunching my podcast, continuing to build my branding consultancy, working with clients that I absolutely love, all of that is because I built my real self into my business. I worked on my relationships, on building trust, on speaking to groups. I went on masterclasses, I went on people's podcasts, and even did this when I was told that it might not be worth it. And at the end of my former version of my former life, building my personal brand saved me, and it provided a way for me to provide for myself. I was proven that what I talk about, building true relationships with people, that actually works. Okay, the second thing I learned. Second, it taught me that people aren't always who they say they are. And I know this sounds kind of vague, but since the uprising of my life, I found myself being very put off by groups of people who are just lying through their teeth about things everywhere, but especially in the marketing and guru world. And I'll talk more about lying in a moment. People who are selling snake oil fixes and hacks to entrepreneurs who are just trying to learn, and who talk a lot about the money that they make their clients, but they don't actually help anyone or see any projects through. I found myself at conferences talking to quote unquote big names that were hoping to impress me with their fake Instagram followers and their supposed 7-figure clients. And I just couldn't help but excuse myself to go decompress and think, what the heck am I doing here? My tolerance for bullshit has been, without my knowledge, lowered extensively. You see, I really don't care if a client has the money. I don't care if they have 3 times the budget to work with someone like me. I won't work with someone who lies or who sells from an ingenuine bag of tricks. Realizing that I now had the secret weapon of bullshit intolerance made me realize just how much misinformation there is being shared about entrepreneurs and how they actually got to where they are today. The entrepreneurs who have stories like mine that no one has ever asked them to share, the way that they are actually able to find balance in their relationships and work, the real steps, the real sacrifices, and even the self-compassion that it took to get them to where they are now. The way that they hustled some years and then made peace a priority other years. The duality of knowing that there isn't one way to build your life on the scale of wrong and right. There's something so special about being able to ask these real questions that other people don't get to ask on shows where every single question sounds the same. And because I love interviewing people, because I have this platform, because I love real conversations with people, this kind of passion got reignited inside me to be the person who can ask these questions and get you real, genuine answers. What do you think? You excited for this next season of the Real Personal Branding Podcast? I know I am. Today, I want to talk about Big Little Lies. And I am not talking about the best-selling novel or the HBO show, but the little lies that are so easy to tell, but take away from the real version of us that we are meant to share with the world. Okay, so imagine me, summery blonde hair, blue eyes, about 7 years old, coming up to my parents in the backyard of my grandma's house. They asked me to tell them the truth about why my sister was crying. So naturally, as a good older sister would, covering for both my sister and I, because I knew we would both get in trouble for goofing off, I told a little tiny lie. And little did I know they had already seen what had happened. They already knew the truth. That was the day that they told me that when I lie, liar is written in yellow across my forehead. And that's how they knew. I was absolutely mortified by this wizardry, and it's not lost on me that my parents lied to me in order to get me to not tell a lie, but that's for another time. So naturally, the next time I lied, I covered my forehead with my hand, obviously. And as they tried to hold back their laughter, it became painfully obvious to catch me in a fib every time I walked up to them with my hand covering my forehead during a moment of truth. I learned pretty fast that lying got me nowhere and the truth was always best. And I carried that into adulthood as someone who just despised lying. Even when it was uncomfortable telling the truth, I really leaned into it, and it helped me in life way more times than I can count. My love affair with being honest in many ways helped me stay true to myself. It helped me advocate for myself later on. And I learned about lying in a more difficult way when people I loved lied to me later on in life. And I felt how painful that was to be on the receiving end of it. When you get used to someone lying to your face and you kind of lose the gusto to call it out, you're forced to become especially astute to reading between the lines, almost as if liar was now written on their foreheads. And it became one of my superpowers. With this superpower in hand and my passion for people, I found it to actually be helpful in my work. Regardless of who I was talking to, I would eventually be able to ask the right questions to find out their real story in just a matter of time and help them feel safe to just be themselves. Not everyone wants to fib. Not everyone wants to lie about themselves. Sometimes it's just a matter of wanting to be perceived a certain way, wanting to not let someone else down. And in marketing and personal branding and social media, you hear people say, be yourself, be authentic. And I know it's so hard not to roll your eyes at the vagueness, but what they're really saying is that you build trust by being who you are. And I know that is so hard. So let me explain it like this. Have you ever told a little tiny fib, a little white lie? Maybe it was something that wasn't even a big deal, something non-important. You didn't even want to lie about it, but it came out, and now you have to stick to that story for like the rest of your life. Maybe you told your Aunt Judy that you made the salsa at the barbecue that everyone is raving about, but you actually just bought it in the ready-to-go section at Target. And now Aunt Judy wants you to make it every single time she has a get-together. You feel like you can't tell her because now you've brought it to the family barbecue 3 times. And so now you have to live in this silly little secret and remember the details whenever she talks about your famous summer salsa. Now Aunt Judy's friend who has had too much wine is asking you for the recipe, and you're looking in the bowl and you're trying to identify, is that a mango? Is that a carrot? I don't know. I can't remember the recipe right now. Who wants to carry that kind of little silly secret around with them to their grave? For the freaking Target salsa. No one wants to do that. Not even Aunt Judy. You could have just told her that you didn't have time to make anything, so you picked this up along the way. In fact, Aunt Judy would probably be happier to know she could pick it up anytime on her grocery run. When you tell the truth, you aren't forced to remember details or stories that might change. When you are actively and fiercely yourself, you have the power to just be and the power to build real organic trust with people. Whether we realize it or have yet to understand it, we value people who tell us the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. We value those people who are just straight with us, who are honest with us. We trust them more. We ask for their help. We buy things from them. I tell my clients when we work together that many times people start their personal brands by trying to create this image of themselves that isn't really them. They're caught up in this worry that there has to be some better version of themselves with a perfect personal brand photo shoot, an aesthetic social media feed, and perfected branding in order for people to trust them. But it actually works the opposite. Would you rather have your business coach or mentor or service provider tell you a little fib about themselves before you hire them? Would you be okay with that? Or would you rather just know their real history, their real story, who they are in the world, what their passions, their beliefs, their values are? That is what builds trust. And the long-term trust we build with our clients starts with being honest. When establishing your personal brand as an entrepreneur or speaker, avoid creating a false image of yourself. Attempting to maintain an inauthentic persona is such a surefire way to lead you to burnout. And it is far easier to just relax into being yourself and taking your audience on a genuine journey with you. So let's do it together. Welcome to the first episode of the new season of Real Personal Branding. I am so happy you made it here. If you would like to connect with me, please send me a DM on Instagram. I am L Davis Creative there and everywhere, and I would love to meet you. On my profile is a bunch of links where you can find free personal branding resources and more. You can also find show notes on my website at laurendaviscreative.com/show. I can't wait to hear what you think about this new concept. Let's chat. I can't wait to talk to you soon.